So this stone records that the boundary of the church was rebuilt and walled in 1827. Prior to 1827, the churchyard had a circular boundary. There were wooden gates here, and as part of the 1827 work they installed metal gates and basically made it into a carriage entrance. Prior to that it was mainly a hearse entrance. There would have been a footpath to the church. The entrance on the north side has changed over the years. Primary access was by the south side, but there was a path that went over this grass into the north side of the church. I think it was kind of where the third window is there on the Wilton Chapel, where it's stoned up at the bottom. I think that's where the porch used to be as well. But basically back to the boundary. So hopefully you can see the map in the bottom left, which shows a circular boundary of the churchyard. I'm just going to walk around it now. So there's a curved footpath and wall that marks the old boundary, which would have been medieval. Basically, as a secure high point, you would build a ditch or a rampart or a palisade even, and the locals would bring their cattle and their important people into the secure enclosure when there was vagabonds and villains traipsing through the valleys wanting to steal your cattle. So the high ground became a secure point. You'd build a little hut, maybe start praying for good weather when you had a drought, or fine weather when you had a flood. Started giving offerings to a deity, and so the strong point became a religious focal point for the community as well. And so you end up with a little chapel, and important people were getting buried here. So here you can see the curved nature, which is represented by the new 1827 wall. And basically carried around here. Now, historically, the south side of the church, any church, east-west church, Christian church, would get the sun. So this would be where the fates or the children hung out during services, while the adults learnt the error of their ways indoors. The kids came out here and had some fun. I suppose that was the start of Sunday school. At this point in the wall here you can see a later 1881 edition, or 1886 I think, that goes off to the left there. So in 1827 this railing and wall, well, the railing's been replaced since. The wall was put up in 1827, and they bought the land to the left of the map from a Mrs. Oldham. So at this point in the wall, the curve stops, and it turns straight, which is straight along the bottom of the map on the screen. But the old pre-1827 boundary would have carried on curving here, So let's follow that old boundary around. You can see here how the land slopes off to the left. Like I've said, you would have secured the high ground, the top of the hill, with your enclosure. So the tree line would have followed round there where I'm stood and follow around to meet up with this tree line, which still is echoed in these present day trees, but everything off to the left here would have been outside the enclosure. And as I've mentioned, by the 1827 and 19th century, Mrs. Oldham owned the land and was having it farmed. There's the John Brooks monument, in need of a bit of a clean and a bit of attention. There's weeds growing out the side of it. But here we're back on the tree line. And again you can see how the land slopes off. So really the gardeners come and mow the old enclosure line. Somebody needs to tell them we expanded it in 1827 so they can mow the rest of it. Saved me a job. But if we follow the 1827 tree line around, we'll end up back at the hearse house where I started. Sorry, 1827, pre-1827 tree line. So the boundary in 1827 was pushed out down here. Here we go. We've got the botanist Percival and Horsefield over there. Botanist Buxton is down there. But this embankment here came along in 1827 along with that stone wall. So it meets the stone wall in the far corner over there. And then this lower section on the left, you can see the south section with a path sloping down between it and this here, which is a north section in front of me. This came along in 1863, something like that. 1863, 64, and the local asylum was also booming, for want of a better word, and they started filling it up quite fast. So the expanded a bit further west into the tree line in the distance there, and then they actually went over to the hospital and said, look, you're filling up the graveyard, we've only just expanded it, can you pay to buy some more land off Mrs. Oldham or whoever owned it by that time and expand it. So in the 1880s they expanded in the south. Let me just get over here past Queen Victoria's Cannon Birch and Queen Victoria's Sir William Fairbairn. So here at this corner, this is the 1827 corner. So beneath us we've got the south section in the 1860s. Then beneath us here we've got the 1880s, 1881 section, which is 3 sections down there into the tree line again. So that's the bit that the hospital paid for. The 1827 boundary carried on straight ahead of us here, which means the first couple of stones on the left here actually belong to the new section, or the NS sections on the left that the hospital paid for. So number 1 and 2 are on this side of the path, 3 and 4 are under the path, 5 and 6 on the left of the path. So I'm not really sure if there is actually any plots under the path, but the numbering does imply that. You can see there one of the stones, we've got the masons lined up to have a look at for us. And then further off down in the distance, past the 1880 wall, are the clough sections which were taken, bought from a farmer in the 1920s, and that gave another 11 sections. So that's really the churchyard, how it's expanded over the centuries. I hope this new app that I've been using has worked, otherwise I've been wittering onto myself, and you know I'd rather witter onto you. Let me just see if I can do this. There you go, that makes the map larger. You can see the original circular boundary, and you can see the squaring off on the west side of the churchyard. It also involved a diversion of the footpath on the south side. It would have come up to the 1827 wall. When the new sections came along, the footpath was diverted into its present location. There you go. Right. So you follow the tree line, the medieval tree line, back round here, and it meets back at the hearse house. So the medieval boundary would have passed through the churchyard about here. Again, the land trails off to the right towards what is housing now. But in 1827 they put up a big retaining wall. I won't really show you that because that's people's back gardens. We have just got behind the very tasteful toilet block which sits behind the listed hearse house. See if I can get in here. Got some old stone roof tiles there. You can see here, this is the back of what's now the church inn, but it was a church hall. I think he had another floor on top of this. There's an old photo that shows you going up. There's like a window blocked in, a couple of windows really. I'll put up an old photo. There's a photo taken back here that shows how tall it originally was, and I think upstairs in that was where they had the Star Chamber local court, accessed by some stairs in the churchyard, in the beer garden of the church inn. Anyway, time I got on with some work. Well, at least I'll start with a brew anyway. Brought my flask, brought my bag of safety equipment, flask. Gonna open this up, get some work done, get some exercise, and you can all stay at home and stay safe.